First up here, T, the NFL and players are still trying to figure out the details of starting the season. After the players rejected the league's proposal to put 35% of salaries into escrow, the league proposed cutting each team's player cost by $40 million in salary cap and benefits. Of course, the NFLPA is not happy with this new idea, and Patrick Mahomes, he's feeling himself these days, tweeted, "Stuff is crazy, man. All this time we had, and now we're down to this, ... In or out, you are concerned that the NFL negotiations will get as ugly as Major League Baseball talks did.
Out of bounds. I don't think they're going to get as ugly as Major League Baseball talks did, because the NFL owners know that they're still going to make some money here. The MLB owners knew that they were losing money. No matter what scenario they threw out, they're going to lose money this year, which is why Rob Manfred, with a slip of the tongue, said we were only ever going to play 60 games because they want to minimize the loss, and the only way to do that was to play the minimal amount of games. I think the NFL does have some issues to sort through financially, and let's be honest, health-wise. Are they going to be required to wear masks, and the protocols and the tiers that we talked about a few weeks ago? Is that going to be sufficient enough to keep guys safe? But I don't think it's going to get acrimonious like we saw with Major League Baseball.
I totally agree. I'm going to say out of bounds. I just have more trust in the leadership of football than I do Rob Manfred. I mean, Rob Manfred's got, railroad tire marks all over his body. I've been running him down for the past 5. Thankfully, I've been able to back off because he hasn't really said anything in a couple of weeks. But Rob had a
couple of weeks, like months, BT. You go back to the Astros decision.
That's true, too. That is true. He butchered that. So Rob Manfred has instilled zero confidence in me, whereas Goodell had some early flare-ups and some early missteps for sure. Didn't handle things properly, but since then it's been much more buttoned up, more in sync. Totally agree. It feels you can't quantify feel all the time, but it just feels radically different. I think you're absolutely right. So the defending World Series champ Nationals might have a bit of a home field issue, as protocols in Washington, D.C. Basically state that anybody exposed to the virus must quarantine for 14 days. So while sources say that the Nats have been cleared to play opening day against our Yankees, Garrett Cole taking the rock, the team is exploring options to play the rest of their home games elsewhere. As we know, the Blue Jays are facing logistical issues. They're looking at Buffalo, the Dodgers and teams in Florida, as are the Dodgers and teams in Florida, Texas, and Arizona. So in or out, Major League Baseball did make a mistake by not creating an NBA-like bubble for the season.
I'm going to say out of bounds of that, BT. I just think it's much harder in baseball to create a bubble, especially with the way that the schedule would work out. And they explored this in a sense, but they were in the hot spots now. And, unfortunately, that lag time between infection rates and death rates are starting to catch up to us. And so it feels dire again, especially in parts of the South. So I'm going to say out of bounds, because the locations that they were choosing wouldn't have worked ultimately. In the same breath, what the NBA is doing is like a condensed rush to get a champion.
Boom.
This is the regular season for baseball.
That's a big difference. And speaking of the NBA, I know the Bucks just had a positive test.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
We'll get to that a little bit later, but it's not Giannis, but we'll get to it. So, listen, I think it's very, very different. The states, as Tiki said, that would have been an issue. And, just throwing together 8 final regular season games and then, trying to hit, speed on the blender to crown an NBA champion is just easier.
Yep.
And even though it's only 60 games for baseball, it's just easier. So I don't think they made a mistake. I think that they tried early on to think out of the box and be creative and be somewhat innovative. And thankfully they scrapped those plans for Florida, Texas, and for Arizona. But I as much as I can pin at their doorstep and leave at their doorstep for mistakes, I cannot. This is not one. I agree with you on this one, too. Mac Brown is bringing back UNC football a little bit, at least to the forefront of the ACC. A big recruiting run here. Got a great corner about a week or so ago. But the former national champion coach at Texas isn't happy with the leadership role in college football. College football should have a commissioner who oversees the Power 5 conferences.
This is... as much as I want to say out of bounds, I think I have.
Why do you want to say out of bounds?
Because it's nuances and parts of the country are different, and conferences are different, and circumstances in their states are different. We also know that the NCAA, as a governing body, is not. It's an association of all of the teams and the athletic directors, and so it's like everybody works for everybody. And Mark Emmert's supposed to have that role, but he looks at it in a different sense. So I'm going to say inbounds. I think they should have a commissioner, because there is uniformity issues that are coming to a head right now.
Boom.
And it's going to make it really hard for college football, BT, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I don't think they're going to be able to solve it, because there's no one in charge. Individually, there's people in charge, but collectively, there's no voice. There's no one in charge.
This one was so easy for me. Inbounds. Like, I didn't even really give any merit or any consideration to the other answer. Listen, now there's no guarantee he would be a good commissioner. We just finished talking about baseball.
Yeah.
But I think that it would really alleviate a lot of the uncertainty, and it would take away pressure from conferences and athletic directors to, maybe not ultimately make decisions they don't want to make, but certainly consider making decisions they don't want to make. Now, the pandemic makes it a lot easier to say, oh, yeah, of course, this would be easier if there was a uniform voice there that was able to consolidate the thoughts of all 5 conferences. Yeah, it's easy to say this now when we're dealing with what we're dealing with. I don't know if I felt this way a year or two ago, but even if there was no, and I probably didn't, but if there was no pandemic, still, and I think this is what you were alluding to, the issues of branding and merchandise, self-branding and monetizing one's brand, which is obviously coming to college. That's something that is going to be a very tricky road to navigate, and one voice, or at least one leader, one direction, would be advantageous. So I say inbounds as well. All right, Tiger Woods.
Tiger who? Tiger Woods.
Get that today.
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods returned this week at the Memorial, but will likely miss his first cut. Although I got to tell you, that's changing. It looks like the big cat's getting a little reprieve. The cut line has been moved to +3. Right now, Tiger is firmly inside the cut line at +3. And it didn't look that way. And I saw his last putt of the day. He had to hit about a 7 or an 8 footer to get par on 18. It had a nice wedge in. And the putt was not straight. It had some bend. He put it center cup. He poured it home. So he was able to get the par, and he finished up at +3. Right now, even though he dropped 49 slots from round 1 to round 2, he is in the cut line, and that was not the case early. But anyway, that's what's happening at Memorial, at least pertaining to Tiger Woods. But what about Bryson DeChambeau? He's the newest star, obviously. And before the round, Tiger and Bryson hooked up, and they played a practice round together. And after that practice round, DeChambeau discussed how Tiger changed the game, saying, quote, he inspired a whole new group of golfers to do new and amazing things, to not be afraid of hazards, to not be afraid of tough courses, to go after it and just play without fear, end quote. In or out, DeChambeau will win his first major before Tiger takes home his 16th.
I'm going to say out of bounds with that one, BT. I love Bryson DeChambeau. I enjoy him. I like his new philosophy. Don't know how long it'll last, but I enjoy it. He obviously is not afraid of obstacles because they're not in play for his drives. But I do think when it comes to some of the hardest courses and the pressure of those moments, you gotta have been there, and I believe Tiger will do it before Bryson does.
Pains me to say this, but I'm going to say, not that I have anything against DeChambeau, but, I'm obviously pulling for Tiger. I'm going to say out of bounds here. I'm going to say out of bounds. I did see DeChambeau miss a par putt right before this last segment. I walked out to get some water, and he missed about an 8-footer. So he's +1. He's not playing particularly well. It's obviously a very tough course. Ryan Palmer leading the way at -9 if you're curious. Tony Finau's playing well. John Rahm, Gary Woodland, pretty decent leaderboard. Jim Furyk's there. Victor Hovland, he was solid last week. Patrick Cantley's a big-time player. You got some big. Jordan Spieth has played well, -3. Here's the thing. What I saw from Tiger Woods today was very ominous. And really, You got to let golf people analyze the swing. You have to. But I could just tell you in the most simplistic way, even if you're a hack, you can recognize when a pro is kind of, pulling off the ball for fear of, ripping through it, that torque, forget about DeChambeau, but even the guys that dial it down, that there's just necessary explosion from the hips as you lead through the ball. And Tiger, I saw him flare 5 balls out to the right. Teak, I know it went a little further than it would if you and I were playing, but the shot tracer was identical to how a lot of our shots go. He just was not finishing with any power. He was grimacing. Now, quite frankly, if I didn't see that, my answer would have been out of bounds. I would have been more pro-Tiger, but, the back is just such a funky thing. You never know how you're going to wake up.
Doesn't he look skinny, too?
Yeah, I think he looks okay. I have no problem with the way he looks.
Yeah, he
just
looks
skinny.
He just looks thinner.
Yeah, he does look a little thinner. I'll grant you that. But not
it may be on purpose. It may be on purpose. So I don't know, but he also hasn't played a lot. I mean, he's probably been playing a lot, but he hasn't played competitively.
No, he hasn't
at all. Really.
No. And there's a competitive speed. And I know he tees it up with Justin Thomas all the time down in Florida, but that's different, going out there. He's probably playing with a cart.
Yep.
And it's different when you're playing in tournament conditions where every shot is stressful mentally and physically. So I'm going to say that Bryson, based on what I've seen right now, and by the way, another putt for Bryson for par, so he's just really not playing particularly well. About a 6-footer for par, and he missed it. Wow, bogey. I'm going to still say Bryson.
Tune in next time for another edition of Inbounds or Out of Bounds with Tiki and Tierney.